This is meant for the English-speaking Tibetans who tend to understand my messages more clearly if I speak in English, and there has been quite a number of requests. Today, I'll speak on what I have already announced on 2nd September, Tibetan Democracy Day, the day which I considered as auspicious day to announce my candidature for 2021 Sikyong. Now, in that statement, there are several issues that I raised. One is why I'm standing for the Sikyong election. That is the first and foremost question that comes to everybody's mind as to why Pemba 3 is standing for Sikyong. Now, I have 6 reasons why I'm standing for Sikyong. Number 1, in the last few months, my biggest regret is that in my prime, I have not been able to serve my community. Now, having to overcome challenges in day-to-day life, and more particularly in public life, is inevitable. I have not only faced those challenges successfully throughout my life, and in more recent times, but also learned to surmount them fair and square. Despite these uncalled for irritants, I remain steadfast. That is my first reason. I remain steadfast in my oath-bound commitment to devote my whole life to rendering service for the common good of Tibet and the Tibetan people. So my commitment, whatever difficulties, whatever challenges that I had to go through in my life, I've faced it, I've overcome it, and I remain true to my commitment to serve the Tibetans and the Tibetan people this whole life. Now, to serve the Tibetan people, number 2, ranks and positions, of course, are not necessarily important, but then it does make a difference in terms of the extent to which one can render such services and to the range and depth of the effectiveness of those services. So that is the second reason why I'm joining the Sikyong election. The third reason is the position of Sikyong is one that enables the person occupying it to bring out his or her maximum potential to the task of rendering political and administrative services for the people of Tibet, all the while keeping uppermost in your mind sanctity of the noble and reasonable advisories of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or the thoughts of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Number 4, in keeping with the wide range of experiences that I've gone through in the last more than 30 years in public life, and the vigor of my physical and mental health, I feel this is the right time and age for me to bring out the best of my potentials to the service of Tibet and the Tibetan people. This is the fourth reason. The fifth reason is, if I do not stand for election this time, my impudence would hurt the sentiment of many people who have expressed their trust in my leadership and belief in my personal integrity, capability, and sincerity in meeting the challenges ahead. And last reason is I remain confident more than ever before that the policies and programs that I envision in political, administrative, and social economic field will definitely bear immediate and long-term positive results for the cause of Tibet and the well-being of Tibetans in and outside Tibet. Now, having said all this, the reasons why I'm standing for the position of Sikyong in 2021, I think it's particularly important for the younger generations of Tibet who are are not too familiar with Tibetan politics so far. They know a little bit of my background. Except for a few years after graduating from college to attend to the needs of my large family, we are 9 brothers and sisters. In my own humble way, from a simple farmer's son, I became the Speaker of Tibetan Parliament in Exile. Served the community all my life, fulfilling the wishes of my parents and the responsibility to my people. Through all these years, I feel proud and privileged to have served under and being guided by the most reasonable and benevolent leadership of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. 21 years within the Central Tibetan administration, I imbibed both traditional values and modern education and served with complete sincerity and dedication, forthright in my views and deed for the common good, forsaking personal gains. Now, during those years of service, since within the Tibetan community, since I myself come from a simple farmer's family background in Balakupi, and having visited most of the settlements in India, Nepal and Bhutan, India and Nepal and around the world, I have not visited Bhutan so far. If not for the pandemic, or if not for the COVID-19, I would have visited Bhutan and the nomadic areas in Ladakh and Tuting and some other areas that I have not visited so far. Except for these few places, I have visited most of the Tibetan communities worldwide. I have insightful knowledge of the social, financial, demographic structure of the Tibetans in exile. Thereby, I am quite well placed to develop policies and programs suited to the needs of each of these communities. And within the same Tibetan community, I have spent considerable amount of time understanding the history of Tibet and mindset of Tibetans from different parts of Tibet. That is very, very important for us to understand Tibetan politics. So that gives me an analytical understanding of the causes of internal societal and political issues and seek appropriate approaches to alleviate them, to mitigate them, pool in collective effort to resolve them that addresses concerns of different sections of our community. See, before taking over the responsibility of the Speaker of Tibetan Parliament in Exile, I have organized numerous workshops to strengthen democracy at the grassroots, particularly in training the elected local assembly representatives. So my knowledge of the Charter and the rules and regulations that govern the Tibetans in exile will help in deeper entrenchment of democratic polity in exile at both the local and the central level. When I was serving as the director of Tibetan Parliamentary and Policy Research Center for 7.5 years in Delhi from 2001 to 2008, I have organized many youth leadership workshops from 2003 onwards till the end of my tenure in that office, and have been working very closely with and empowering the younger generation of Tibetans. So this, even during my speakership, I have spent enough time with younger generation of Tibetans. And also when I was representative of His Holiness in Washington, D.C., I tried as much as possible to reach out to the younger generation. Now, this will remain one of the main focus of our work, to prepare and to empower the younger generation of Tibetans worldwide. Later, we will discuss more about this. Then I became speaker in December 2008, and for 7.5 years I served as the Speaker of the Tibetan Parliament in Exile, During those times, you very well understand that I have to work with representatives of all the three provinces and religious traditions in the standing committee. And there have, during those 7.5 years, we worked diligently. We spent our time working, not on divisive politics. Despite what some troublemakers, there are always troublemakers within the community, so despite what some troublemakers try to insinuate, my work record is testimony to the fact that I have the capability to work with and pool all our energies together for the greater good of Tibet. We have to leave all our small differences behind. F. We as people of Tibet owe our present existence solely because of the benevolence of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or the leadership of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Therefore, it is the duty of every Tibetan, and more particularly the leadership of Central Tibetan Administration, to appropriately respond to any malicious statement from within or without the Tibetan community. And I shall never ever waver from this responsibility, whoever may be the offender. Whoever may be the offender, I'll stand up and make sure that all these unfounded malicious statements are corrected. Number two, international community, my experience in the international community. So over and above my experience working in Delhi for close to a decade with Indian political leaders, my interactions and associations with foreign offices around the world, wherever I visited, enables me to develop international relations programs to effectively disseminate reality of the situation inside Tibet, to seek political support and good understanding of, I also have a good understanding of the budgetary systems of these countries to enable fundraising to meet the needs and the requirement of the Central Tibetan Administration. Number B, I also had the opportunity to organize 3 World Parliamentarians Convention on Tibet, which is one of the 2 big platforms that support the Tibet issue. As a group of parliamentarians coming from all over the world, we meet. The first 4 were held in 95, 94, 95, 97. Then we organized the 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th in Scotland, in Rome in 2009, and 2012 in Ottawa. And I've also participated in the other big platform, that is the International Tibet Support Groups Conference. So with both these experiences, and in addition, I have led parliamentary delegations to many countries. As speaker, individually, I have visited many countries around the world. And these experiences will provide me with the means to develop ways to strengthen parliamentary groups and Tibet support groups around the world. Now, this is regarding my exposure to the international community. On issues relating to what is happening inside Tibet, although I did not have the good fortune to visit Tibet or having been born in Tibet, throughout my political career, I have read reports, I have listened to people, I have closely watched the consequences of PRC's policies and programs in Tibet. And this will help us in bringing the right issues to be raised internationally, and more particularly with China. Resolving the issue of Tibet remains the topmost priority of Central Tibetan Administration, and the second being the well-being of Tibetans in exile. About Tibet again, I have a very clear understanding of how the middle way approach has evolved, and also have a good understanding of different autonomous arrangements around the world. We have studied so many different numbers of arrangements around the world. And we have held conferences with experts, politicians, and academics from these countries. And my commitment to Umelam, that is the middle way approach, that was proposed by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The public openly supported that, and the parliament unanimously passed that in 1997, and I will never waver from that position. Until the Tibetan people remain steadfast in this approach, I shall relentlessly work towards seeking a logical conclusion through this approach. Now, regarding China, I read and study China and try to understand the thinking of the Communist Chinese leadership as much as possible, with whatever material that I can lay my hands on, despite the opaqueness of the Chinese system. This will help me in maintaining a realistic approach with a clear understanding of China's dubious and devious means. I still continue to read about China every single day, and then we also have to look at the global situation. I read and watch every development and changing dynamics around the world, every single day. Therefore, I'm quite conversant with global political and financial situation, regional, geostrategic and military realignments that could have a bearing on Tibet. This will allow us to avail of any or all opportunities for pushing the Tibet agenda on any given platform at any given time. So these, without going into details of from what age to what age I did what, these are a general picture of what I went through in my 21 years of service for the Central Tibetan Administration. And then in that statement, I also covered what I was doing in the last 3 years. I will not go into detail of all this. Most of you know that I had to spend a lot of time on an issue that was unwarranted, that was not necessary. But it happened, and I did that for the benefit of Tibetan democracy and also to save my own reputation within the public as to what I've been doing. So on that, I had to spend a lot of time. Then in between, I wanted to do a project on the Tibetan resettlement in North America, how it came about. Now the project is becoming longer and larger, so it's taking a little more time than what I had thought. Then I also spent a lot of time listening to His Holiness Dalai Lama. I also spent a lot of time reading and reaffirming the historical perspective of Tibet in all the 3 regions. So except for one time when Tugu Oyen Topke tried to defame His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I had to come out openly. Except for that one occasion, for the last more than 9 months, I did not speak to the Tibetan public, and many of my friends have been trying to reach me. I stayed away from all that. I stayed away from social media, doing my own bit for my family, which I have not been able to do for the last 30 years. So I spent the last 3 years not wasting, but properly using, and every time thinking about what is or what are the reasons or what are the causes for these kind of problems and how do we meet these challenges. And as we say, just as we have day, we have night. And similarly, you have problems and you have solutions to everything. So that is what I've been thinking about. So today in this first segment, I told you about the 6 reasons why I'm standing for Sikyong election this time. And my experiences within the Tibetan community, globally, about Tibet and about China. So with these considerations in mind, I believe that I am at the right age with the right experience to to take the leadership of the Tibetan people. I stop here with this statement. The second segment, I will continue with my views on the current election, or my opinion on the current election, and what my position would be. Thank you so much.